Welcome to Module 1, Lesson 1 of our Research Methods course, focused on the nature of knowledge and inquiry. I'm Angel Reyes, and today we'll explore fundamental questions about how we know what we know, which forms the foundation for understanding research approaches. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to distinguish between different ways we have acquired knowledge, identify the specific characteristics that make scientific knowledge distinct from other forms, and reflect on your own preferences and patterns in knowledge acquisition. Understanding these foundations will help you approach research with greater awareness of epistemological assumptions. Throughout history, we have acquired knowledge through multiple pathways. These include tradition and authority, where knowledge is passed down from established sources, personal experience through direct interaction with the world, intuition, which provides insights without obvious deliberation, reasoning, including both deductive and inductive approaches, and systematic observation or research, which involves methodical investigation. Each of these ways of knowing plays important roles in both everyday life and formal inquiry, though they have different strengths and limitations. Knowledge from tradition and authority is accepted because it comes from trusted sources we respect or institutions we recognize as credible. For example, medical practitioners accept certain protocols because they are taught in medical school and endorsed by established medical authorities. This way of knowing is efficient and leverages accumulated wisdom, but it may perpetuate errors if the authorities themselves are mistaken or if knowledge has not been critically examined. Throughout history, many established facts accepted on authority were later discovered to be incorrect. Personal experience provides knowledge through direct interaction with the world. When teachers discover that a particular approach works well with their students based on classroom experience, they gain practical knowledge. This form of knowing is immediate and personally compelling because we trust our own experiences. However, it is limited by our individual circumstances and subject to various cognitive biases. Two people may have very different experiences of the same phenomenon, leading to contradictory conclusions about what is true based on their personal observations. Intuitive knowledge appears in consciousness without obvious deliberation or clear reasoning steps. A classic example is when an experienced clinician has a sense that something is wrong with a patient despite normal test results, often leading to the discovery of an overlooked condition. Intuition can provide rapid assessments and creative insights that analytical thinking might miss. However, intuitive knowledge is difficult to verify, communicate to others, or systematically improve, and it can be influenced by unconscious biases and assumptions. Reasoning involves structured thinking processes that connect ideas logically. Deductive reasoning moves from general principles to specific conclusions. For example, if all mammals have hearts and dolphins are mammals, then dolphins have hearts. Inductive reasoning works in the opposite direction, building general principles from specific observations. For instance, observing that every crow you've seen is black leads to the generalization that crows are blackbirds. Both forms of reasoning provide powerful tools for knowledge creation, but can lead to error if initial premises are flawed or if the reasoning process contains logical fallacies. Research creates knowledge through methodical investigation designed to answer specific questions. For example, clinical trials determine medication efficacy by systematically testing treatments under controlled conditions with clear protocols for measuring outcomes. This approach explicitly attempts to minimize bias and error through careful design, documentation, and analysis. While more rigorous than casual observation, research requires significant time, resources, and specialized skills, making it impractical for many everyday knowledge needs. Scientific knowledge has distinct characteristics that differentiate it from other forms of knowledge. It has an empirical basis, grounded in observation rather than pure thought or belief. It involves systematic collection and analysis of data following established methodological principles. Scientific knowledge requires public verification, making methods and findings open to scrutiny by others. Finally, it is tentative and self-correcting, subject to revision when new evidence emerges. These characteristics create a particularly robust form of knowledge, while acknowledging its inherent limitations. The empirical basis of scientific knowledge means that it is grounded in observation and evidence rather than pure reasoning, authority, or tradition. Scientists distinguish carefully between observations, what was actually detected, and interpretations, what those observations might mean. This empirical foundation connects scientific claims directly to the observable world, providing a check against pure speculation. Even abstract theoretical concepts in science must eventually connect to observable phenomena to be considered valid scientific knowledge. Scientific inquiry is methodical rather than haphazard, following structured approaches to investigation. Researchers use appropriate methodologies for specific questions, recognizing that different problems require different investigative approaches. This systematic nature includes careful planning, documentation of procedures, controlled conditions where possible, and organized record keeping. The systematic approach helps minimize bias and error while allowing others to understand exactly how knowledge was generated. Unlike personal intuition or private experience, scientific knowledge is open to scrutiny and replication by others. The peer review process subjects research to critical examination by qualified experts before publication. Replication studies attempt to reproduce findings to verify their consistency. This public nature means scientific claims are not accepted based solely on the authority or reputation of individual researchers, but must withstand critical examination by the broader scientific community. This collective scrutiny helps identify errors and strengthen findings. Scientific knowledge is always subject to revision with new evidence, methods, or theoretical frameworks. Even well-established scientific theories may be modified or even replaced when compelling contradictory evidence emerges. This feature distinguishes science from dogma. Science values evidence over authority or tradition. The self-correcting nature of science means errors are eventually identified and corrected through ongoing investigation. This characteristic requires intellectual humility, as today's scientific certainties may become tomorrow's outdated ideas. In everyday life, we typically combine multiple ways of knowing, rather than relying on just one. When cooking dinner, we might follow traditional recipes, authority, adjust based on past successes or failures, experience, taste, and adjust as we go, testing, and develop a sense for when something feels right, intuition. Similarly, medical decisions often involve medical authority, research evidence, and personal experience. Understanding the complementary nature of different knowledge forms helps us appreciate how they work together in both everyday contexts and formal research. Each way of knowing has distinct advantages and disadvantages. Authority-based knowledge is efficient, but may perpetuate errors if not critically examined. Experiential knowledge is immediate and personally compelling, but limited and potentially biased. Intuition provides quick assessments, but is difficult to verify or communicate. Reasoning is logical and systematic, but may build on faulty premises. Research is rigorous and transparent, but time-consuming and resource-intensive. Recognizing these trade-offs helps us choose appropriate ways of knowing for different situations and combine them effectively. Research represents a particularly structured form of knowledge creation. It is planned rather than spontaneous, with clear questions and methodologies established before data collection begins. It is documented, creating a record of both processes and findings. Research is theoretical, connecting specific investigations to broader conceptual frameworks. And it is transparent, making methods and results available for public scrutiny. These characteristics allow research to contribute meaningfully to a broader, cumulative body of knowledge rather than producing isolated findings. Consider which ways of knowing you personally rely on most. Have you experienced situations where different ways of knowing came into conflict, such as when intuition contradicted what authorities claimed? How does your academic discipline prioritize different types of knowledge? When do you find research particularly valuable, and when might other ways of knowing be more appropriate? Reflecting on these questions helps develop metacognitive awareness about knowledge acquisition processes and epistemological assumptions. To build upon this lesson, please complete the reflection activity in your course materials, where you'll analyze a recent decision using the framework of different ways of knowing. For Lesson 2, where we'll examine different types of research approaches and how they connect to these foundational concepts about knowledge.